To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency. Two very big words. The action I am taking will open up access to up to $50 billion of very important and a large amount of money for states and territories and localities in our shared fight against this disease. In furtherance of the order, I'm urging every state to set up emergency operation centers effective immediately. I'm also asking every hospital in this country to activate its emergency preparedness plan so that they can meet the needs of Americans everywhere. Using federal emergency authorities, the FDA approved a new test. We therefore expect up to 500,000 additional tests will be available.
The COVID-19 outbreak has been spreading around the world since its announcement in the city of Wuhan in Hubei province in China. With a sober heart, I must announce this morning that COVID-19 has reached our country. The positive COVID-19 results were received last night on Friday, the 13th of March, 2020, at around 21 hours. The tests were conducted on 2 travelers who came to Namibia from Spain.
In Europe, a great shutdown is continuing. At its daily briefing, the World Health Organization says it is now the epicenter of the crisis.
More cases are now being reported every day than were reported in China at the highest of its epidemic.
Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez announced a state of emergency will begin on Saturday after the death toll jumped 50% to over 120. Brussels' EU leaders are scrambling to coordinate a European response after member states introduced their own draconian measures and unilaterally closed borders. In Italy, the death toll jumped by another 250 in the last 24 hours. A shipment of 30 tons of medical equipment arrived from China after complaints Rome's EU partners have been too slow to respond.
The Indian government has now reportedly declared the viral outbreak as a disaster. This is the latest bit of information that is coming in, where the Indian government, which has been taking many steps, has now come forward and said that this outbreak is now a disaster.
Well, it has been notified as a disaster. It's a kind of a legal process for the purpose of providing assistance under the State Disaster Response Fund so that the funds can be utilized for specific purposes, like, for example, ex gratia payment will be made to the family of the deceased person. If a person dies of coronavirus, his family will be given 4 lakh rupees. And of course, there are other provisions as well, like if a person requires hospitalization, the cost of the hospitalization of managing the COVID patient.
अब 6 महिना रोकेर हामी 3 महिना काममा जाँदाखेरि चाहिँ यसपालि यो कोरोना भाइरसले गर्दाखेरि हामीलाई काम पाएन भने चाहिँ हामी एकदमै दुखी छौं। हामी 3 महिना चाहिँ काम गरेर पैसा कमाएर आफ्नो फ्यामिली पाल्ने, घरबार तिर्ने त्यो गरेका छौं। अब त्यो पनि भएन भने अब हामी कसरी बाँच्ने?
Refugees and migrants attempting to cross the Greek border from Turkey have faced a violent crackdown by Greek border guards. They have given first-hand accounts of abuse and detention at the hands of Greek officers before being forcibly pushed back into Turkey. But there's more. Reports suggest that the Greek authorities are not the only ones cracking down on refugees. Local vigilantes and members of right-wing groups from several European countries have traveled to Greece in recent days to stop migrants from crossing Greece's borders. According to local Greek newspaper Efsin, local armed vigilante groups started to patrol the border, attacking those who made it to Greece. Worryingly, the German left-wing party Die Linke reported that neo-Nazi organizations from its own country are trying to reach the Greek border for similar purposes.
El mundo va a haber perdido el mercado de Venezuela y la aparición de China como uno de los grandes jugadores mundiales en el comercio, pues por supuesto nos ha puesto los ojos en esos mercados. Colombia no producía arándanos hace unos años. Para no irnos más lejos, Colombia hace 5 años no exportaba aguacates.
Got some breaking news for you now. A Canadian woman held hostage for more than a year in Western Africa is now free. She was taken alongside an Italian man while traveling through Burkina Faso.
John, we're learning just this morning that Edith Blair, who people may remember us reporting on more than a year ago now, and Luca Tiketo, her boyfriend, have now been freed, or rather have escaped their captors in Mali. Now, as you mentioned, they were taken in Burkina Faso in 2018. This, an image of them free today, coming to us from the UN mission to Mali. They appear to be in good health. The head of the UN mission there telling us that they fled their captors. It appears from what we're hearing today that they had the help of locals to escape to a UN checkpoint in the northeastern city of Kidal. And you see them there next to a plane. Now, they flew to the capital of Mali, Bamako. They met there with the head of the UN mission and with Canada's ambassador to Mali.
A battle is raging in global oil markets. Saudi Arabia has unilaterally increased its oil production levels in retaliation for Russia refusing to agree with OPEC requests for production cuts. This has caused the biggest single-day drop in global oil prices since the Gulf War in 1991. How did we get here? Coronavirus, in addition to creating a massive international health crisis, is also impacting global markets and economies. One consequence of the virus is that global demand for oil has dropped, causing a huge oil surplus, thus forcing prices down. China, the world's biggest oil importer, is now consuming much less energy because of the disruption to its manufacturing industry. Refineries there cut their oil imports by 20% last month, and it's estimated that in the first quarter of this year, global oil usage is 3.9 million barrels per day lower than last year.
When the lights go out, you can almost hear a collective groan from millions of South Africans. It affects everyone differently. For business, it means a loss of revenue. On fruit farms across the Western Cape, it's picking, packing and distribution time. The cold chain from when fruit, such as apples and pears, arrive at a pack store has to be maintained continuously. With the implementation of Stage 4 load shedding this week, it meant at least 5 hours of production per day was impacted. Producers have no choice but to acquire their own power generation. Most make use of generators, but diesel costs are exorbitant. Costs can reach nearly 2/3 of the regular electricity bill.